Hello everybody, you're very welcome along to this Transfer Talk podcast here on Anfield Agenda. My name is Craig and as always I'm joined by Christian and by Chris for a chat about all the Liverpool transfer news and gossip. There's a lot for us to get through this week because it's really been heating up. Christian, I haven't spoken to you since we signed Fabinho. What's your thoughts, mate?
It's a fantastic signing and he ticks all the boxes really in what kind of player we need. And I reckon if he had played in the Champions League final, he would probably kicked Ramos out of the pitch after what he did to Salah. So it's a mean bastard with great technique, and he really suits our style of playing. So I'm really happy about it. And again, we are fierce when the transfer market start. We are so effective and we're just coming out and getting what we want basically first of all, and that's a statement.
What was so good about this for me, Christian, was the fact that nobody had a clue about Fabinho. We were all talking about Fekir and we were talking about other potential players, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere the club are just, we see a rumour about Fabinho and then within an hour he's holding up a shirt.
Yeah, I think it was something that people might have got wrong. It was that we negotiated with Monaco when Coutinho was leaving, and everybody said it's about Lemar. I think at that time Liverpool also said that we are interested in Fabinho. And the negotiations then started behind closed doors. And then we let out a rumor here and there that we are going for Jorginho, which made perhaps some of our competitive clubs go for that signing because people have seen that it's quality what we bring in. So I think we sent other clubs on the wrong track and got to the one that we really wanted.
Just quickly talking about other clubs and Jorginho in particular, it seems that we're going to see himself and probably Mahrez sign for Manchester City in the next week, Christian.
Yeah, Manchester City, they are becoming even more solid next season. They will bring in another 4 or 5 players. I mean, they are looking at what can they get to win the Champions League next year. That's their aim. They have won the league that much now. And I mean, I think Guardiola, in his perfection seeking, perhaps want to go for the quadruple next season, if possible. They will be a very tough opponent.
Chris, you know what? Manchester City may be a tough opponent, mate, but so will we be. And having a little bit of time to settle down and talk about this Fabinho deal, which actually broke when we were recording the COP Council podcast on Monday, which was absolutely nuts. We hadn't been in that situation before, mate, but you've had a little bit of time to digest it, to have more of an in-depth look at Fabinho. €45 million apparently, with up to 5 million in bonuses. What do you think of it?
Money-wise, it makes so much sense, doesn't it? Given his age, his profile. I mean, I know he's not a first pick at the moment for Brazil, but he's very much a part of that squad. Looking at his status at Monaco, he's definitely one of the leaders there. So he fits that kind of profile, which Klopp seems to like, which is having natural leaders all around the pitch. You know, I don't need to sit here and tell everybody what type of player he is. He's very obviously, he's a quality player, and one very much that addresses, I would say, an apparent weakness in our team, in our side. And you mentioned Man City there, going out and signing players like Mahrez, for example. I don't particularly think that strengthens them in terms of their what you would consider a starting lineup, which they would play most weeks. Whereas our signings so far, Keita and Fabinho, definitely do. They do definitely address parts of our team that needed strengthening. You know, and you can only play 11 players at a time. So I'm not so much worried about what Man City do at the moment. I don't think I don't think they've got apparent weaknesses. A 100-point season would tell you that, wouldn't it? Whereas we have got apparent weaknesses and we are addressing them. And Fabinho and Keita is just such a good start. And money-wise, we're getting top-class players for the kind, well, anything under 50 million, anything in and around 50 million euros as approximately, 25, 30 million 2 or 3 years ago, which is what we were getting Mane's and the Firmino's for. So it's really good business, really, really good business, and very ruthless as well, which is what I like to see.
You know what, gents, I did say at the start we have a lot to get through, and the balls just keep moving and moving and moving, and the transfer business, Christian, is a very, very fast business. We've seen tonight, we all are aware that Liverpool are trying to sign Nabil Fekir, but there's things starting to break all the time, rumours starting to come out that we might be progressing slightly in this deal.
Yeah, it's said that we have made our first formal bid now, 53 million pound. No response yet, but that's the latest news coming up.
What do you think of £53 million? I can see that coming back with a no and possibly looking for somewhere around the 60 mark maybe.
Yeah, but it's all about how we deliver the bid. If it's with different kind of clauses, and perhaps it's a player going the other way. And I mean, I saw that we are releasing Bogdan today, so perhaps we will sweeten the deal with the goalkeeper there.
Is that really sweetening the deal, though?
No, but seriously,
have we anybody in the squad actually that might be worth sending out to Lyon for a loan, perhaps?
I can see in a club like Lyon, I could see that they might think a player like Origi can be interesting.
That's a very good shout, Christian. He kind of came into his own at the end of his season at Wolfsburg. He had an impressive ending to the season, but I can't see a place from at the minute at Liverpool, so that's a good show. I think he did very well at Lyon.
He also speaks French, right? And some of these things actually matters. That it's easier to bring in a player who understands the language from the beginning into the squad, and he might actually fit Lyon quite well, which is very good for us. On the other hand, I have no idea if they are interested in him, and I have no idea how Lyon is going to react to this bid. But I think it shows that Liverpool are really going for Fekir. That's the statement I get from that the first bid is made, and I don't think it will be the only bid. I think there will be more bids, but I think it will be quite quick business because I haven't really heard another club going for him.
Well, that's the next question I wanted to ask you before I went over to Chris. Do you think maybe we'll get this one wrapped up before the World Cup starts?
Yeah, I think this is a matter within 2 weeks.
That would be very interesting. And Chris, if you think back to 18 months ago, mate, if I mentioned Nabil Fekir to you 18 months ago and said that Liverpool are going to be going from, we probably weren't in that shopping centre, should we say, or that bracket of players.
We probably weren't, but then by the same token, I think 18 months ago we wouldn't have known too much about him. He spent a long time injured, by all accounts, and he's only really come to prominence over the last 12 months. He looks a very impressive player. Looks exactly the kind of player we need. And I think, like Christian said, I think we'll probably be looking at getting this done within the next couple of weeks, certainly before the World Cup. But he's a tricky customer to play ball with. What I do believe, though, is if the money's right, he will sell, if Fekir wants the move. Everything points towards this being done at some point. I've got no insider knowledge. I don't know whether it's 99% done like everybody seems to be claiming. It's certainly not. We've only just put his first bid in. And like you said there, Craig, I think it's probably going to be a no, and we're going to have to go in with an improved bid. But if we end up paying what, £60 million for him, I would say he looks a £60 million player. So I'd have no problems with that.
If you're looking at 75, Chris, sorry for interrupting. If you're looking at 75 million for Mahrez, then 60 million for Fekir certainly seems a reasonable amount.
Yeah, I mean, Mahrez has done it season in, season out now for the last few seasons. He was an integral part of a Premier League winning squad. I actually think he's probably worth that. He's still in the prime of his career. He was offering Coutinho numbers, wasn't he? And look what we got for Coutinho. And I think he's only a year older, isn't he? So I would say he's worth that. But yeah, in comparison, looking on current form, Fekir's age, and just some more, it's more about how they fit into your system, isn't it? Rather than just, comparing two players and comparing their stats. Fekir looks very much a perfect fit for Klopp's system. And the best way I can put it is, could you imagine on Saturday when Salah went off injured, if we had Fekir to bring on? Or if Fekir was already in the team and we could push Fekir into that area and then bring on a central midfielder. Exactly. So, or even Lallana, where he does his best work. He isn't part of a front three, is he, Lallana, for example? So you're not going to get the best of him there. That was just where we had to use him because we were threadbare. But I'm looking at it, would that player have made a difference on Saturday? Yes, he would. Massive difference. And would that be worth 60, 70 million to the club? And would we view it as money well spent? Well, of course we would. So, yeah, I'd be all for spending whatever they want within reason. And I think somewhere between the 60, 70 million pound mark is perhaps about right.
Christian, Chris touched on position there and where Mahrez might fit into this Liverpool team. Where do you think his best position would be, bearing in mind the type of system Klopp likes to play?
Well, Fekir, not Mahrez, but...
Did I say Mahrez?
Yeah.
Sorry, apologies, Fekir.
Yeah, never mind, but...
I think Mahrez, though, if he's going, to be fair.
I still have to respond to the question that you asked. So my answer would have been different for Mahrez. Fekir, I can see us rotating with the help of Fekir, that he will be one of the top three players. But he could also be used just behind them, like the Lallana player. However, he doesn't have that work rate. So that might mean that Firmino is changing position if Fekir comes in, because Fekir might be the one we have on top then, like the striker, and Firmino will be the running supporting midfielder. And I don't really like moving Firmino from his most glorious days when he's playing up front, because then he's just lethal. What I saw from him in the Champions League final, that might be in the place that he should have played. I mean, everything was better than Lallana coming on. I have to say that. He was the wrong guy coming on at this moment. And I don't know actually where they found him, because I haven't seen him for 4 months or something like that. And all of a sudden, he was the option for a Champions League final, which I thought was just the strangest thing ever.
It says a lot, doesn't it, Christian, when we're looking to our bench and we're bringing on Adam Lallana or maybe Emre Can, who haven't played in a very long time, and then Real Madrid look to their bench and they're bringing on Gareth Bale, who 120 seconds later is sticking an overhead kick in the top corner.
Yeah, of course, the squad depth. But I'm just saying, with the tools you have to use them correctly. I could see that we could have done smarter changes. In the last game, for instance, Solanke scored. He played. I'm not saying Solanke is a better footballer than Lallana. I'm just saying that he had a positive feeling coming into this game. Lallana doesn't have one positive memory from this season since August last year. He had a horrible game coming on. And we would probably had, if Moreno had played on the left side and we'd moved Mané over in the top three, that would probably be more interesting. Or moving up Wijnaldum and bring on Emre Can to the midfield. We could have done so much differently than to use Adam Lallana.
I have to say, I thought Gini Wijnaldum was magnificent in that game, as well as Dejan Lovren. I thought Gini Wijnaldum was absolutely fantastic, especially at the start of that game. I thought he was our best midfielder on the night. I don't know if you guys agree, but I know it's past tense now and it doesn't really matter. I do want to push on though, because as I said, news breaks quickly. Just as we were coming on, I was doing a YouTube live earlier on and a couple of names started getting thrown at me. Then I came on, started chatting to you guys, Chris, and rumours now are coming that Liverpool are in for Cillessen from Barcelona, the goalkeeper. Now, he has a reported release clause of £60 million or €60 million. I'm not sure which one. But regardless of that, do you think these links are true?
Well, he's not a brand new link. And I know we've mentioned him on one of our earlier transfer pods. He gets in the national side, even though he doesn't play for Barcelona as a regular. So he's clearly got something about him. And to be given such a high release clause, he's clearly got something about him there. That would indicate that he's got something about him. Let's not lie, we've not all seen a lot of him.
Seen a lot more of him at Barcelona, at Ajax than I did at Barcelona, to be honest.
Same here. Yeah, same here. But obviously, I'm looking at sort of like recent form. But I'm pretty sure he's going to be champing at the bit to play first team football, and he's not going to get that at Barcelona. Barcelona will know that as well, and know that they've got a player who perhaps wants out to go and get first team football. And you've got to feel that you wouldn't have to pay the £60 million release clause to get him. Just because he's got that doesn't mean what he's going to cost. So we've got to, if we are in for him, I think we're going to be looking at approaching that at somewhere halfway. He's a young, talented goalkeeper who's got previous great form, even though he hasn't played a lot recently, who's going to want out of the club. So, all the cards are decked in your favour, really, aren't they, in terms of getting a deal over the line at a more reasonable price than what his release clause is.
That's true. And Christian, when we were chatting before we start recording, you said that the 60 million release clause we can look at as basically an end game. If it comes to the worst, if we have to pay it, it's there.
Yeah, it will be a negotiation until we are satisfied, because we won't go for Cillessen unless it will be for the right money. I'm pretty sure that, but we are going for so many goalkeepers. There are so many rumors. I heard this week that we made one bid for Alisson. We made one bid for Donnarumma, according to rumors. We will go all in for Oblak, even though he has 100 million release clause. Alisson, they say, has 80, 90 million, something like that. And now Cillessen, which means that the goalkeepers we're going for, no matter which goalkeeper it is, it will be a high-profile goalkeeper. It will be somebody who Liverpool looks for now, if all these rumors are true. But what they are, and perhaps that has changed since the Champions League final, that we now are looking for a first goalkeeper. I could have opinions about it, but I think we have seen a change in how we approach the goalkeeping market.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you both. Do you believe that the Champions League final performance has changed Jurgen Klopp's thinking in any way, shape or form, Christian?
I do.
And Chris, do you?
I still don't know. I really don't know. I think what it's done is give people in the media a chance to revisit a lot of links that we had previously when everybody assumed that we really needed a new goalkeeper or even two. We know we definitely need one because Mignolet is going to be off. I'm a little up in the air myself with it still at the moment, because I've just never seen Klopp as being reactionary. And it went very, very quiet on goalkeeper links, didn't it? Certainly your Alissons and your Oblaks of this world. And then all of a sudden, we're starting to look at the Butlands of this world as competition or backup to Karius. I know 99% of fans would like us to just go out, nail the position with an Alisson, get it over and done with. But I'm not certain we have a manager who is quite willing to just go and do that on a whim. I don't think he's going to ignore all of that form on one game. I think he'll do it more. I think he'll be more considered about it. I don't think he's going to go and ruin. Perhaps if you think about it, Klopp's perhaps approached this summer months ago hasn't he? And set out his plans on what he wants and who he wants and for what position. And I don't think an £80 million goalkeeper was on that list. Now, if you're throwing an £80 million goalkeeper onto that list, what other positions are you having to compromise on? So I don't think it's as cut and dry as people think. I don't think it's a case of, right, Alisson's available for 80 million. Can we get him for 70? Yeah, we'll get him. I don't think it's that simple. And I think it might be a bit of a drawn-on process over the summer. And we could possibly be looking at names we've not even heard of yet.
Christian, apologies. I didn't realise you were still looking to come in a moment ago. I'll let you back in now. But I also just want to ask you, Chris touched on there about Klopp not being reactionary. And we know when it comes to transfers, a lot of the time, there's a lot of groundwork that has to be put in. Just looking at the Fabinho deal, there's links saying we were going back as early as February trying to smooth the waters to bring him in. So apologies again for cutting you off, but I just want to know your thoughts on Klopp's thinking.
I think it's like this. I think all these rumors, it seems to be that we are going for a goalkeeper. Just like we went for Fabinho, the rumors was around Torreja or Jorginho or many other players. I think at the moment we are finishing a deal with a goalkeeper that's not has been mentioned yet. That's what I think. And I think we are very close of finalizing that deal.
I can't wait to see what goalkeeper we bring in, because at this point, I think it's tough to say, but I think we've faffed around long enough in this position. I think we've had too many seasons now where the goalkeeper hasn't been the worst in the world, but certainly hasn't been of the quality of a team looking to go and win the Premier League. I think that's fair to say. And we need to go and strengthen this summer. I fully trust Klopp. Whoever he goes for, he has my absolute confidence, and I believe he'll bring in the right guy for the right money that will suit the club. Another link that came up today came from Ed Aaron of The Guardian, Chris, and he believes Liverpool, Spurs and Chelsea are all chasing Crystal Palace's Wilfried Zaha.
I read this link. The wording of it is a little strange. It doesn't sound like it's a case of we're about to go and bid for him or something. I think it's all come out with regards to Crystal Palace wanting to tie him down to another deal, which is a bit mental, really. He signed a new deal in the summer, a 5-year deal. So I think if anybody wants to sign Wilfried Zaha, it's going to cost a lot of money, isn't it? It's going to be a ridiculous amount of money. From Wilfried Zaha's point of view, he's going to want guaranteed first-team football. I don't think he gets that at any of the sides there mentioned. So I'm not too sure. Is it a case of, we'll presume all of these sides are interested in him. He probably deserves to be playing in the top 4 or top 5 or top 6. It didn't really seem concrete to me. But let's have it right. He's a quality player, and I think any side would be lucky to have him. And I don't go along with this idea that, we shouldn't sign a player because we don't know where he fits in. We see a lot of that, don't we? And any player who's good enough and confident enough will back himself to nail down a first-team place anywhere. So if it is true, if we are in for him, I'd be happy. I think he's a quality player.
Christian, looking at Zaha, to me, yes, I agree wholeheartedly with Chris. He's a quality player, but looking at the 3 clubs that have been linked with him, from a Chelsea point of view, you think, well, are they going to move on players? Are we going to possibly see the manager change? And we've seen that they've been linked with Sarri from Napoli this week. Apparently they won't pay the £7 million release clause to get him out of his contract. You have to think that of the 3 clubs, Chelsea will probably be the most likely for me if anybody was interested, because they might be losing players this summer and they might need to bring in a bit of pace up front. Who have they got at the minute regarding pacey players? They're a very slow team, to be fair. So for me, my opinion would be that I would see Chelsea as a more realistic target or a more realistic club for Zaha than Liverpool or Spurs.
Perhaps. I actually think Spurs is a bigger threat than if we are now going for him. I think Spurs is a bigger threat than I think Chelsea are. Chelsea, I don't understand this about Sarri, though. He was fired from Napoli. and Ancelotti is taking over, right?
Yeah,
how can he have,
from the 1st of July, I think.
Yeah, so how can he have a release clause?
I think.
How can you be fired and have a release clause? I don't understand the mathematics.
Is it a case that maybe Napoli have brought in Ancelotti and they have him there, but they haven't technically fired Sarri and he's still under contract? So maybe that they're trying to. They might put him on gardening leave or something stupid like that.
I don't understand how it's possible. I think it's when I read that about the release clause, it doesn't add up. When you get fired from your job and then you change job, then your old employees want the next employee to pay for your services, but they don't want you. It's the strangest one.
It's usually the case where the club is paying off the manager to get out, isn't it?
It's really strange. Back to Zaha then. I can see that Zaha, he missed the English World Cup, right?
Yes.
He plays for Nigeria, doesn't he?
Yes, you're right. Sorry. Absolutely spot on, Chris. I was thinking that earlier on. Somebody mentioned the same. And I was thinking, he's not English though, is he?
Yeah, well, he's played for England at other levels, but earlier this year he kind of pledged his allegiances to Nigeria.
Oh, so earlier
last year. Sorry, for Nigeria. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. Well, I thought perhaps that he wanted to evolve into a player like Oxlade-Chamberlain. I think players are seeing other players coming to Liverpool and see them develop and evolve. And that might make their agents contact Liverpool now. So players that we weren't interested in, but are at very good quality and at the right time to get, might turn up at our disposal or possibility to sign. And Zaha might be one of those. And what I've seen from Klopp, he has a very distinct style of play. We all know that. But on the other hand, he takes the qualities of what the players have and evolve them into fitting our style. And if he could take the qualities of Zaha and bring them into the Liverpool mix, it will be very interesting to see what he could bring. I agree with Chris completely, and you, Craig. He is a quality player, and he's way too good for Crystal Palace. But I might think he will end up at Spurs.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting summer, and as Chris said, if he does move anywhere, it's going to be for big, big money, because moving within the Premier League is never cheap, especially Crystal Palace know if they lose him, Christian, they are losing their talisman. Christian Benteke might be their centre forward, but if they lose Zaha, then they're losing the player that probably saved them and kept them in the Premier League.
Yeah, and I don't think Benteke will stay over next season. I think he will be out. I'm thinking also like this: are Crystal Palace actually a bit interested in players that we have, like let's say Klein or Lallana or Ings or any of these players, and see that we might want a couple of the Liverpool players coming to us? And we see that Zaha is going. We might get a couple of quality players to our side that will be good enough to the middle teams of the Premiership to sweeten the deal, so to speak, so they could see win-wins by making the deal with Liverpool, perhaps.
Absolutely. It's as I said a minute ago, it's going to be an interesting summer, and I think clubs are going to move very, very quickly. Chris, you want to come back in?
Yeah, well, I mean, firstly, just to finish that off there, Crystal Palace do like making deals with Liverpool, don't they? Or the other way around, we seem to do well out of them, don't we? But another thing on Zaha, and obviously we've just discussed who he plays his international football for. Now, I'm not for 1 minute suggesting that Zaha isn't a proud Nigerian, but he did represent England at other levels. Could that show possibly a mental weakness that he doesn't back himself enough to get in the England side? And if he has that mental weakness, do you think that's enough there for Klopp to not really be interested in him?
Because you have to look at his time as well at Manchester United as well, and what stopped him really progressing there.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, he was young, and obviously, there are times when young players think, I need more opportunities. I get that, but to not back yourself to get in that England side, I don't know. If I'm an half-decent player, I'm thinking, given an extra 10%, I'm getting in that England side. It's not a great England side. Hasn't been for a while. So, I don't know, just something to think about. And also, again, Christian just mentioned about players, maybe this is one of those links where the player's interested in the move this way rather than we're interested in bringing him in, if that makes sense. And recently on LFC TV, Melissa Reddy was talking about how our Champions League run has basically brought our phone off the hook at Anfield or Melwood, wherever, with agents of players contacting the club, showing their interest in coming into Liverpool, specifically after the 5-0 Porto win all of a sudden. And that also makes you wonder whether that was at the point where Fabinho became a prominent target, so
we certainly have to be an attractive club, don't we, to players at this point, especially they can see that we're most certainly on the up.
Oh, exactly. But that's it. We are on an upward trajectory, and I think we're talking about some players here like Zaha, who is still, whilst a quality player, still a bit raw, still a little bit of a work in progress. Sillerson, who also is. And I look at the last 3 signings that we've made, Keita, Fabinho, and VVD. I don't like calling him that, sorry, Virgil van Dijk. They are very much ready-made players.
And players that if you told me a year ago we were going to sign, I wouldn't have believed. It's a big step from Liverpool, maybe in the transfer market. Yeah,
even one of those you'd be over the moon with a couple of years ago. But they were our last 3 signings, and I'm kind of thinking that maybe that is where we're shopping now. So maybe I'm going back on what I've said previously in this podcast, that maybe we are after the Alissons, only the Alissons and the Fekirs and the Lamars now. Maybe we're not after projects. Maybe this is literally fine tuning to create a title winning side, and only the best will do.
Christian, just touching on that, it kind of plays to how stubborn Klopp was in regards to getting Van Dijk. Van Dijk was the man he identified. Van Dijk was the player he wanted. He wasn't willing to sacrifice or take second best, and he waited the extra 6 months to get him. Then we seen with Naby Keita, the club were very creative in the way that they got Klopp the player he wanted. They paid that little bit extra, but they left him for a year where he was. What do you think? Do you think that there might be something to what Chris is saying here?
Yeah, and I completely agree with every single word. It's nice to be in podcasts with people with the same opinions. I think that if I look at how we are approaching the transfer window now, the first 2 signings that Klopp did was Matip and Karius, and when he arrived. And when you see how we kind of evolved, Mane was the first kind of star he brought in, and we all as Liverpool fans thought like, okay, it's another Southampton player. Sure, he's good, but is he going to be that good? And then last year's window started, and we brought in 6 players, I think, and Salah was the first we got done, with Solanke turning up quite quickly. And then we got Robertson. And Robertson, you might the eyebrows might went up a bit, but when you've seen the quality that Robertson was for the money, and then we brought in Chamberlain and then Keita and then Van Dijk, and now this year we are starting kind of at Fabinho. Now we go, we have, instead of starting at the free transfer kind of players, now we are really going for gold right away. We are going for quality, experienced, world-class players. People who are top 10 in their position in the world. And that shows how much the club has grown during Klopp's era.
One person that I think, Chris, deserves massive respect in this situation, it's not somebody we ever have spoke about on this podcast, I think, that's Michael Edwards. I think he's been absolutely magnificent in how he's went about his business.
I was just about to finish your sentence there. He's really showing his worth, isn't he? I think he's perhaps next on the pay rise list, isn't he? Or He's going to get a big Christmas bonus this year. I know that much.
Well, he doesn't like the limelight anyway, does he?
Well, no, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. He's a cog in the wheel. He might be a quiet one, but he's a very important one, and he's doing his job brilliantly. Nobody can question that. And he's only under instruction from the people above him as well, isn't he? Really, again, it's just another sound appointment that they've made, and it's good to have people at the club in all areas, all doing their job properly, and everything seems to be working perfectly at the moment from top to bottom, which is again is something else that's nice to see.
Absolutely, and I want to move on. We're going to move on to a similar topic at the end of the podcast, actually, because I believe Christian wants to talk about pretty much what Chris was saying there. But the last player I want to have a chat about before we move on to that is probably my dream signing from every perspective, and I probably mention him on nearly every podcast. That's Christian Pulisic. Now, we've seen his father come out this week and say he's been linked to Tottenham last week, then it was Liverpool, Manchester United. It's all hogwash. He's been linked with a different club every week. He's got no idea. His agent right now is working and looking in close relation with me and Christian, and we're just trying to see what the next best phase is in his development, Christian. So what do you take from that?
I never thought we were going for Pulisic for two reasons. Klopp doesn't buy players that he used to have, and second, he doesn't want to lose the love from his former fans. So for those two reasons, I can see that Klopp is a man of integrity. And for those reasons, I don't think Pulisic has never been on the table for us.
Do you see him moving, though, this summer? Or do you think he's going to stay at Dortmund and give the new manager a chance to see what he can do?
I think he's going to stay.
And Chris, your take on Pulisic? Am I just clutching at straws?
I don't think you are, no, because I think this transcends just what Klopp wants. I think we've got to look at the fact that we've got very business-savvy American owners as well. I think we've got to look at the player, what he's like as a player, what he brings to a team. Everything points towards us going in for Pulisic, doesn't it? The only let's say issue is pretty much what Christian just said, which is Klopp tends not to go back for players. What I would say, some time has passed now, hasn't it? I think he is in the realms now where he's safe to perhaps go back for a player, and as long as it's done in the right manner and the right money is changing hands, he does revisit players. He's got that in his history. If you remember Nuri Sahin, he took him back. So he doesn't hold grudges against players leaving, and he doesn't. I know that's a different situation. What I'm saying is he does tend to like players that he likes. He likes Nuri Sahin. He took him back. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't want to bring Pulisic over. So it's just a case of getting all the ducks in a row on this one, isn't it? Making sure that Dortmund are happy, that their fans are happy, that Pulisic is happy. I could imagine Pulisic wanting to play in the Premier League and wanting to play for Klopp. Yes, I've heard he's a Manchester United fan, but I don't hold much stock in that. When all's said and done, he's not from Manchester. He's not born and bred, is he? He's from the United States. We know foreign players who have an affinity with a club. Doesn't stop them from moving to another club. We saw that with Solskjaer at Manchester United. So I think it's just a case of getting the money right and making sure everybody's happy. It just makes too much sense for us to go for him. He's still very young, still got lots of improving to do, but can also still bring something to the side, which means I believe he'd still be quite willing to play for his place in the side or play for his opportunities rather than expect a starting berth the second he walks into the club. And he can offer something right across that front three as well. So, yeah, I think it's very likely that we'd go for him. Whether that means we get him or not, I don't know. But it just seems to make too much sense. It really does.
He's a player that I would absolutely love at Liverpool from many points of view. As I've said, from a marketing point of view for the club, he'd be a dream. He'd open up that American market to us even more, which, as we know, is a developing market now. There's India and the likes of that developing hugely, but Chris, he certainly would sell shirts.
He would. And going back on his father's comments, the hogwash comments, his father's going to look out for his best interests. And right now, this summer, his interests are having a strong summer. Doesn't need any distractions. And I think his father's just doing a father's job there and saying, look, we don't want to talk about transfers to here, there, and everywhere. He's got a job to concentrate on this summer. So I'm not really reading too much into that either. I think his father, just like him, and just like everybody who would possibly be involved in the possible transfer, should anything happen, just be interested in every party. It benefiting every party. So it being done at the right time in the right manner.
Yep, very well said. And gents, we've come to the part of the podcast where we each bring a point that we'd like to talk about or a topic for discussion. And Christian, I'd like to come to you first, please, mate. So what's your topic for this week?
My topic would be FSG and what they have done over the years. We were a club in crisis when they arrived, and what I can't understand is, no matter what they do and no matter what our results are, no matter how quickly we bring in players, they still have this. Liverpool is quite a divided fan base when it comes down to different subjects. Like Henderson, we are 50% are for Henderson, 50% are against Henderson. FSG is kind of the same. It's a big movement with FSG out and still there. And these are owners that proved in Boston Red Sox that they came there to bring glory back to the club. They invested in the club and they took it by different steps to make it the best baseball club in the world. I can't see any other approach being done to Liverpool, no matter what owners we might have. And they are doing you mentioned Edwards before, they put the right man or the right woman at the right place all over our organization. And you could see that Liverpool is flourishing at the moment. All of a sudden, all players want to come. We have the most charismatic manager in the world. We have our legends play football games, and we can remember them and have even more enjoyable moments. And the fan base is growing by the minute. Liverpool are in an extremely healthy state, and for that I would like to thank FSG for their marvelous job at the club.
You know what, Christian? It's been a big year for FSG at Liverpool Football Club. If we go back 12 months, we had a lot of disappointment in the transfer market. We seem to be always just short of players, undervaluing players, or going in with low ball offers. And they've certainly backed the wrong horses along the way. They've hired some wrong people to begin with, but I fully back what you're saying. They've learned their lessons along the way. They've always fully had the club's best intentions, I believe, in everything that they've done. They've improved the infrastructure around the club magnificently. Anfield is night and day from what it was when they came in. I mean, just the surrounding areas, the new main stand is magnificent. They've plans for a new training ground. They've brought in the best manager we could ever hope for. I mean, I don't think there's another manager in world football more suited to this football club than Jurgen Klopp. They've done everything they can to improve the club. They haven't saddled us with debt. Yes, we haven't in the past seen us go out and break world records for players, but let's be honest, we weren't in a financial position to do it. So Chris, what's your take on FSG and how they've run the club?
Starting from the top, there was no way they were the only potential suitors who could come in and save the day, but they did anyway. It was them. They were chosen, and they did. Fair play to them. I think initially they possibly bit off a little bit more than they could chew. I don't think they quite realised the size of the club and the size of the job that they had on their hands. And they certainly put the wrong foot forward a few times, didn't they, in the early days, specifically with what they did to Kenny. And I think since then they've had to bridge a disconnect with the fans. Some fans, and like Christian said, we might be divided on them, but I do believe that it's still only a minority that just refuse to forgive their early indiscretions, really. And, they have built some bridges. They've they've certainly put the right people in the right places. You've mentioned Klopp, we've mentioned Edwards, and even in terms of which press members they allow close to the club, even they're the right people. We know people like James Pearce, for example, and Tompkins are close to the club. You know,
Melissa Reddy has very good links to the club as well.
And Melissa Reddy, you know, and they're all very good mouthpieces for the club. They do their jobs very well. And slowly but surely, we've seen an improvement in playing staff. When you think what they had to, or what we had to endure under the Hodgson era, the kind of money they were allowing for players, the kind of players that we were bringing in, and it was a pretty sad state of affairs. And I do believe that a lot of the frustration was aimed at FSG when FSG had this idea that financial fair play was always going to save the day for us. And when clubs around us and around Europe were all splashing the cash, FSG, I think, were quite safe in their assumption that at some point it's going to catch up with everybody and we'll be the smartest person in the room. It didn't work out that way. And they've slowly again had to readjust their outlook on how things are going to be done. It's worked. It's taken a little longer than we all wanted, but it's worked. And lo and behold, we're one of the richest clubs in the world with one of the best turnovers. Commercially, we're unmatched by many. They've given us our brand new big stand. They're going to give us another one. We're going to have another training complex. We've got, in my opinion, the best manager in the world for us. You can argue he's not the best manager in the world. You can look at the trophies that Mourinho's won and whatever, but I don't care about that. He is perfect for us. Everything's really good at the moment. It's a good time to be a Red, and they are part of that. You can't ignore that. We are good from the top to the bottom right now. It's a good time. And anybody who wants to say, yeah, we're doing really well, but FSG, well, I'm sorry, they appointed Klopp. They've appointed the guy who goes out and signs the Fabinhos. You know, they sign the checks. We can't ignore that, and they're doing a good job. So even though I had a rocky start with them myself personally, I found it hard to forgive what they did to Kenny. They have turned a corner, and I'm all for that. I've got no problem with redemption stories. So, long may they continue to do well, because that's what's going to be good for us as fans at the end of the day.
Christian, one more point around FSG that has gone very quiet lately is when things weren't going great or when people weren't happy, there was lots and lots of rumours about them selling the club, looking to bring in investment and the minority shareholder in the club, but all that talk seems to have gone quiet lately.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, all owners are into this. Either they use their football club as their little toy, or they are in it to make money at the end of the day. And to invest in a club, to make it healthy, to make it have a profit, it could be a good sell one day. I think that they see that if they were considering the times to sell, Liverpool will be much more financially better for them in 10 or 15 years if they continue this progress. That's for sure. And I mean, they have owned Boston Red Sox a lot longer than us. So I think we are in this with FSG for a very long time. Having said that, if there would come a Chinese bid for like 30 billion pound or something, like those crazy money that no one could ever say no to, they are businessmen, and then they would probably sell.
Chris, another point around the FSC's ownership of the club that has been used as a stick to beat them with is that they picked us up for a song, and that particular phrase is one that keeps coming up. But I have no problem whatsoever with any owners coming in and steadying a football club, building us up, changing the infrastructure, investing in the playing staff, bringing us a world-class manager, increasing our financial input, increasing our marketing around the world, raising our awareness. I mean, that's exactly what we want. And if they sell for a profit in the end, I don't give a shit, mate. I really don't.
No, I don't. I mean, what's your favourite chocolate bar?
Star Bar.
Right, so do you go down to your local shop, walk in, see the Star Bar there, and it's what, 65p, and think, you know what, I'm going to pay 90p for this. You don't, do you? You pay the 65p. You pay the market value, and we were a struggling club financially. We were on the brink of receivership, and they paid what was the going rate to get us at the time. I don't see a problem with that. How you can beat them with a stick for that, I haven't got a clue. It's ridiculous. They've done exactly what they said they were going to do. They said that we would achieve success. Now, okay, we've only achieved relative success, going back to a conversation we were having on our last pod. But they said we would achieve success through self-sustainability, i.e., we will improve on the pitch by buying players that we kind of, as a club, can afford. So we spend what we make. And that's how it's been. And that's what's happening now. We make a lot of money. We spend a lot of money. They've not lied. And this idea that they're in it to siphon money out of the club in order to get richer is utter rubbish. And I know people have also compared what we spend on a footballer to what Boston Red Sox spend on a baseball player. Well, sorry, two different sports. The kind of money baseball clubs make every year dwarfs what a football club makes. They've stayed true to what their plan was. They have. They've not lied to us. We can't accuse them of that. It just so happens that it's taken a little longer. And yes, they bought us for cheap. And yes, maybe one day they'll sell us for a lot. But they are an investment company. They do look to make money. But what people have to understand is they make money off other investments because of we're on their portfolio. We make them a more attractive proposition. So having us and Boston Red Sox, successful sports franchises, as they would call it, on their portfolio gives them more clout to do other things outside of football, outside of baseball. And I think people need to understand that it's not so black and white. It's not a case of, we own a football club, we want to take a percentage of those profits. Any money Liverpool Football Club makes, it's Liverpool Football Club's money.
And whoever comes in to buy the club next, Chris, is not going to be a wealthy owner. It's most likely going to be some type of a venture capital fund or some type of maybe even government-backed fund. Maybe,
but even if that was the case, we can still only spend within our remit. We can't go and spend somebody else's money. So let's say Bill Gates bought us tomorrow, and wanted to plow all of his money, every spare penny he's got, into buying players for us. We're not allowed. It's that simple. It doesn't matter how rich your owner is. But the fact of the matter is, right now, FSG have got us in a position where we are one of the richest clubs in the world, with one of the best turnovers in the world, in one of the best leagues of the world. And we are already turning into one of the better teams in the world because of that, because we are now able to spend 75 million on Virgil van Dijk, 50 million on Fabinho. That's where we are now, and that's because of their plan. That's what they planned, and that's what's happened. And it's taken a little longer than a lot of fans would have liked, but we're getting there, and you can't argue with it.
One thing that I hope, and I mentioned this to Christian when we spoke offline, was it took 89 years for the Boston Red Sox to break the curse of the Bambino, and I hope to good God we're not waiting 89 years to win league title number 19, gents, because that would be a little bit too long. Christian, this isn't on our agenda, but it's something again that popped up earlier on in the day. I wanted to get your opinion on. You're based in Europe, so that this might be something you'd be interested in. I noticed today, I seen Kaveh Shalakal of Sky Sports News come out and say that the television rights were sold for League On, and we're looking at 1 billion. So something like a rise of like 600 million rise or something like that. So what Kaveh Shalakal reckons is that when that kicks in, I think it's 1920, that we're going to see French players become a lot harder to get out of that league.
Yeah, but this is PSG's doing. They put the league on the map, and because of now the league is on the map, all of a sudden other players want to come, and we see other clubs like Monaco. People are buying. I mean, it's one of the biggest shopping centers for other football clubs in the world at the moment. Just look at us and our interests, and it's so many quality players coming from them. I think also if you look at the French national team, I mean, it was Lacazette, Martial, Benzema, and another guy.
Giroud.
No, Giroud is in the World Cup.
Out of the World Cup, sorry.
Yeah.
Last World Cup, Griezmann, yeah.
So these are three of the players who doesn't play of the strike force of France. And the guys that they took was Griezmann, Dembele, Mbappe, and Giroud. So the amount of players.
Oh, so they didn't take Gamero. Was he the other player then that didn't make it?
Who?
Kevin Gamero?
No, it's a much bigger star. It will come back to me, that name. However, to have 8 of those world-class players as your possible strike force in the country of France, they are proving that the education system and the development of talents at the moment is flourishing in France. There are so many talents coming up, and everybody have to play somewhere. And even though players go abroad, so many talents will be left to choose from for the clubs, which means that they don't all of them have to go abroad and buy players. And when they go abroad, they still have the African connection a bit better in France than many other countries. So the league are in a position to become a really big brand and become really strong.
One thing I want to add, and this is a bit, I suppose, from a social impact more than anything else, is I believe wholeheartedly that and Christian touched on it with African players there, I believe wholeheartedly that what we're seeing here, the integration of different countries and different nationalities into the French system, and France welcoming in immigrants and stuff, has seen an influx of amazing quality footballers and athletes, Chris, come through over the, maybe what we're talking about 20 years ago, but coming through as the years progress. And I think that's something to be applauded.
Well, it has been happening for years. If you look at the French World Cup winning side, they won the World Cup and the Euros, didn't they? It was
Zidane, I believe, is Algerian descent.
It's Algerian. Most of I think a good chunk of that starting lineup that started that final were African-born players. So, I mean, I don't think it's some kind of social issue. I think they've just got to a point where French-speaking or French colony countries, they come in and they just cherry-pick the best players. I think that's all it is. I don't think there's anything nice or twee about it. I just think it's a case of, there's a good footballer. Can he play for France? Yes, we'll have him. I think it's that simple. We see it in the UK, don't we? How many players play for Wales who the only Welsh thing they've ever done is eaten a leek or something. It's about, can that player play for this country? Well, what can we prove? I don't think that's all that is, to be honest. But
Makes me think of Tony Cascarino for Ireland. Played his whole career for Ireland and then let it slip that he's got absolutely no Irish blood in him whatsoever.
It's happened a lot, hasn't it? And I don't know, real problem. Well, I suppose a little bit of a problem because, I mean, I don't put too much, I don't concentrate too much on international football. I do like it. I think I preferred it a lot more when I was younger. And when I was younger, I didn't really care whether he was Portuguese, not Brazilian, or he was African, not French, or whatever. I only really look at it now and I see that it's a bit of a murky water nowadays. I think you really, if you're being honest with yourself, you'd much prefer it if the players who play for a country were actually born in that country, create a level playing field.
Do you know what else was funny this week? Again, non-football related. I just want to touch on that. Abramovich has been given an Israeli passport as well, which he's trying to use to help his immigration status in the UK. But Christian, you wanted to come back in?
Yeah, I remember what players it was. It was Lacazette, Martial, and it was Benzema, and then it was Payet. He missed, and Kingsley Coman.
Wow, Coman is some player to leave out.
So that's 5 of the players that didn't make the squad for France, and that might say something about that France might be a really dark horse in this World Cup.
Well, you know what, gents? The best thing that happened in France this week was that Malian hero that jumped up those 4 flights to save that baby dangling over the edge. And my goodness, every ounce of respect to that gentleman, because he is an absolute hero. We see the adrenaline just kick in. He said he was shaking when it was over and he realised what he'd done. But again, congratulations to the French government. They've given him citizenship to the country, and I believe they're trying to secure a job from him in the fire service. So, beautiful story. We love to see things like that in society. Chris, it's your turn, mate. What topic would you like us to have a chat about?
John Achterberg. It's not. I'm not one for calling for somebody to lose the job. I hate it when people do that. Petitions to get people sacked or calls for people to get. It just doesn't sit right with me. But I think he's been the only common denominator with regards to our goalkeeping issue since forever. But what is strange is each manager has kept him on. How many managers has he been goalkeeper coach under now?
Did he come in when Reina's goalkeeping coach Xavi Valero left? Did he come in after Xavi Valero?
Yeah. So Benitez, Kenny Dalglish, obviously before him, Roy Hodgson. Oh yeah. Oh, I mentioned twice in one pod. Oh my god. Brendan Rodgers and now Jurgen Klopp, and each manager you'd forgive any manager coming in and just literally bringing in a whole new staff, but he seems to keep remaining. Yet every single goalkeeper we've had, whilst none of them they've all managed to show signs of promise, they have pretty much all come to the club looking a decent or solid goalkeeper. And then at some point, we're all haranguing the goalkeeper out of the club. And I'm looking at this right now. We're all calling for Karius to... not all of us. I'm not calling for him to go. I think there's a good goalkeeper there. Maybe just come out of the spotlight again for a bit with a new keeper. But that's another conversation. What I'm saying right now is what I wouldn't give really to see another coach come in and get the best out of whatever goalkeeper we buy and whatever goalkeeper is at the club currently, because the common denominator seems to be him. Surely there's something in that. There's got to be. But every manager seems to stick with him, which I find strange.
That's the really interesting thing, isn't it? I mean, Brendan Rodgers had nothing but glowing things to say about him. Jurgen Klopp is the same. Christian, I mean, the man seems to be good at his job from a sense on the training field anyway. With the managers, they all back him.
Yeah, and it's quite funny. It was a poll coming out from the Bundesliga today that all of the players of Germany voted who is the best manager in the world. And Klopp won that poll by 35.7%. Guardiola came in second, Zidane third, and Heinz fourth. So it's basically like this. Everybody loves Klopp. I mean, I'm born in the wrong house from the wrong dad, who's a Manchester United fan. But he loves Klopp. He thinks Klopp is fantastic, and he hates Mourinho. So I think that's probably something that we haven't seen before, that people actually like our coach, even though they don't support Liverpool as a football club. But the charisma of Klopp and how honest he is and the integrity he has and how he supports his players, but also the passion he has throughout the game. And he's really a likable person if you are into football. And I think most of the other fans who say that they wouldn't see wanted Klopp to lead their club would be lying if they said it.
Gents, one more thing in regards to coaching staff and stuff. It's something Christian touched on as well. Pep and Linders, Christian. He's been released, shall we say, from his job in Holland. Available, could come back to the club. Would probably be a fantastic addition. I know Jurgen Klopp rates him very highly and was sad to see him leave.
Yeah, and now I heard we have asked him. I haven't. I just saw the link that he was released from them first or fired. But now I see the first links that we have asked him for him to return to Liverpool, and he's considering it. So it depends on what he wants, if he wants to stay on as a number one or if he think it could be a good step to return. And perhaps in the absence of Bovac, but we don't really know what's happening there either. But in the absence of Bovac, it might be a number 2 place in Klopp's team for him to take.
What would you think about that one, Chris? I think Pep and Linders coming back number 2, as Christian said, none of us really know what's happening with Bovac at the minute.
No, there were a few more rumours about Bovac going around. You wouldn't believe what Bovac did after the Stoke game or whatever. He didn't watch a video or something. I don't know. I still think we'll never really know what went on with Bovac. Will Linders come back? I don't doubt that Klopp is going to ask him back. I think he will. He's a tried and trusted member of his coaching team. So I can see him asking him back. It's whether he wants to have another crack at the managerial whip, maybe. What I do know, though, is I think Klopp's got enough stock in football for him to get hold of a long-term replacement for Linders if Linders doesn't come back, and Bovac if Bovac doesn't come back, and then, like I said, maybe another goalkeeper coach.
I'm never going to understand the goalkeeper coach situation. I've given up trying to figure it out, and I think everybody else has. I've heard it talked about on many podcasts, and nobody can justify it or give it any rhyme or reason. Right, the thing I want to talk about before we finish up, my topic for the night, is Marko Grujic. I really want to know what we're going to do with Marko Grujic. If Fabinho coming in is the end of Marko Grujic, or if we're going to see Marko Grujic perhaps go back to Cardiff on loan now that they've been promoted, or to another Premier League club. So I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on him. So Christian, Marko Grujic, what do you think?
Well, the Fabinho... the signing of Fabinho is a statement. Will he be the link between midfield and defense? Then Jordan Henderson will end up on the bench. Will Jordan Henderson accept that? Because Keita will have one of the positions, and perhaps then Fekir as the third one, with the 3 going up front. Would Henderson accept that? What will be the thoughts of Milner, Wijnaldum, or is everybody happy troopers being squad players? And if everybody is happy and staying, there's certainly no room for Grujic. And I could see him perhaps go on another loan. But perhaps they want to study him during preseason. But I can't see him with the amount of midfielders we have at the moment for him to be a squad player next year.
Chris, for me, it would be a crying shame if we never really see Grujic given a chance at Liverpool. I really had high hopes for the guy when he came in, and I'm not going to lie and say I knew who he was when he was at Red Star or when he was in Serbia or whatever. I had no idea. I didn't know him from Adam. All I can judge him on is the few little appearances I've seen. He certainly likes to tackle. He's certainly not afraid of the physical side, and he certainly knows where the goal is as well.
Well, he does. And it's important to remember at this point as well that, we've not signed another central midfielder, and signing Fekir doesn't mean we're signing another central midfielder. Klopp clearly likes his 3 central midfielders to be exactly what they are, central midfielders. So, numbers. Do we need that many central midfielders? How many does that leave us? Because Chan is going. We were already light I think we can all agree we were light. Probably one player for the middle and probably two players up top. And if Fekir comes in, that's where he fits in up top. I don't think he fits in the central midfield. So will he get games? Not lots. No, you wouldn't expect him to, and I don't think he would expect to at this point. If Henderson plays, then what's Oxlade-Chamberlain going to think about? If Oxlade-Chamberlain plays, what's Henderson going to think about? If either of them two play, what's Gini going to be thinking? Well, they're good players, so it goes back to what I said. They should all be thinking that if I play well enough, I'll play. And when I play, I'll do my best and hold the place down. And that's only good for Liverpool. I think we need to not concentrate so much on what will happen, should they go because they won't play. They've got to back themselves. And if Grujic stays at the club and doesn't go out on loan, he's got to back himself. He's got to use his opportunity in the games where he's rotated into the side, such as early round cup games, and give his best and show that he's worth a place in the team. Because it doesn't matter how he came to the club, it's how he performs when he's at the club, if you ask me. It doesn't matter how much we spent on Fabinho, for example. If he can outperform Fabinho, which I doubt he can, let's be honest, but if he can, then he's well within his rights to hold down a place in the side. Same with Lallana, same with Henderson, same with Gini. It's the same for all of them.
What's your gut feeling, though? Do you think he's going to be moved on in the summer?
My gut feeling is that he'll probably be given another loan. He's a young player. He doesn't want to be uprooted again. Where he's on loan right now, it means he hasn't got to go and move again. He hasn't, he stays in the Premiership. He's still under a watchful eye of the club where he is. There's that chance. Let's think about this though as well. We are actually down Oxlade-Chamberlain till when? November? Was it said? There was something like November. Klopp likes conditioning, doesn't he? He thinks a lot of conditioning. He puts a lot of stock in, and players having a good pre-season and being roadrunner ready for the first game. Well, if he's fit in November, surely there's another month or two before he's gone through his conditioning process and he's ready to start playing regularly again. So we're another midfielder down, essentially. So my gut feeling is that he'll perhaps be retained at the club and used, yes, sparingly, but when needed. I do see that. I don't think we're going to go out and sign another central midfielder. I really don't.
Christian, for me, if we were to see Grujic get a loan somewhere in the Premier League, I wouldn't like to send him back to Cardiff. I understand Chris's point about him having some kind of roots there, but for me, two clubs stand out a mile, and this could be just me putting two and two together and making six, but I'd like to see him go either to Newcastle or to Fulham. If clubs that I think will actually try and do well in the Premier League to an extent. I can't see Cardiff lasting in the Premier League. I think they overachieved.
I think we will more likely see a loan move like the one Origi did, to go to another club in another country for the loan, to play and don't compete with Liverpool in the same league. That's what I think.
Sweetener for Leon, maybe?
Yeah, perhaps.
Rangers.
But I just want to say this about Fekir. I watched him his whole career. If you go to his Wikipedia page and check out Fekir, he's an offensive midfielder and striker. So he has played in the Lallana position a lot. So when Oxlade-Chamberlain will be gone, I'm pretty sure it will be Fekir who will be the one who will play in that position. And with Keita and Fabinho available, I'm pretty sure they will have the two other midfield spots, and then it will be the same top three. That's what I think. That's my prediction of our strongest team at hand at the moment. When Oxlade-Chamberlain comes back, and with the and we talk about players like Wijnaldum and Milner that we have been very pleased with how they have been this year. And we also thought that we've been thinking that Henderson has leveled up, especially since Emre Can got injured. We are looking at a very fierce competition in our team next year. It will be almost impossible to get into their team. And then Grujic comes back from Championship. I can't see him start one game for us next year if we are going for it, unless we're going to rest players. And looking at Jurgen Klopp's history, how he loans out players, I could see him going to Germany next year.
It would certainly be an interesting move, and the style of football will probably suit Marko Grujic as well, to be fair. But gents, I think we're going to have to leave it there for this week. One thing is certain, it's been a crazy week. Lots and lots of stuff have happened. I know that between now and the time we record next week, there'll be even more movement in preparation for the World Cup. Thank you so much to Christian, as always, for joining me. Thank you to Chris. Thank you to you guys for listening. If you're listening to this on the YouTube channel and you've liked what you've heard, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. It really helps us out. Until next time, I've been your host, Craig. Thank you very much. Good night.